Well, hello, hello, hello. Much love to you all. May God bless you all. Hit that like button. And every Wednesday, which we're almost done with the book of John, we'll be at John chapter 20 on the 29th of November. But I'm doing these little side studies to the book of John because there's a lot of, in particular, things mentioned in the book of John that are not mentioned in the other three books, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And in particular, there is four incidences in the book of John that it brings up the fear of the Jewish leaders and how this can also tie in with today, how we should not be fearing what people say or do and have that be a grounds of something that actually stops us from pushing the gospel. So, the first we're going to find in John 7, verse 13, where it says the Jewish populace here um, is how we can take it. In verse 13, it says, "Howbeit no man spake openly of him for the fear of the Jews." And this is, of course, in the time where Jesus was at a lot of these feasts and he was preaching and he was healing and he was doing the things he was doing. But a lot of people didn't speak openly about him. Why? Because of the fear of the Jews, the fear of the people, the populace. The fear of the leaders is what you can say. Is a lot of it is it was a fear of the leaders. Well, there's a second incident that we will go to John chapter 9, verse 22. It reads, "These words spake his parents because they feared the Jews. For the Jews had agreed already that if any man did confess that he was Christ, he should be put out of the synagogue." And this is about the blind man's parents. They were afraid what the Jewish leaders would do. They already came with a meeting and a council to say that we would not allow anyone in the synagogue if they were to openly confess that he is the Messiah. Well, then we see Joseph of Arimathea in John 19. This is another one of the incidents here about the fear that they had for the leaders. Look in verse 38 as we go, and it says, "And after this, Joseph of Arimathea, being a disciple of Jesus, but secretly for the fear of the Jews, besought Pilate that he might take away the body of Jesus, and Pilate gave him leave. He came therefore and took the body of Jesus." This once again shows that people were afraid of what the Jewish leaders would do, and he was a disciple secretly. Now I'm going to go to the next chapter, chapter 20, verse 19, where it says, "Then the same day at evening, being the first day of the week, when the doors were shut where the disciples were assembled for the fear of the Jews, came Jesus and stood in the midst and saith unto them, Peace be unto you." So here's after the resurrection of the Messiah. They had the doors shut because they were in fear of the Jewish leaders. Christ's own Messiah, Christ's own disciples here, Peter and them, had the doors shut because of the fear of the Jewish leaders. Now, the reason why I want to bring a lot of this up is because the world tries to tell us to follow the ways of the world. But when we look throughout the scripture, I know we're in a very predominant time where it is scary. But in Romans 1:16, "For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God unto salvation to everyone that believeth, to the Jew first and also to the Greek." We should not be afraid and hide behind closed doors. John mentions these four cases like he mentions many other cases that are a lot different of how he puts it out there. One, the book of John really goes at the Gnostics, the Gnostic views. The book of John is telling you, this was the word that became flesh. It dwelt among us, and he's the only way to the Father. So not only does it go after the Gnostics, or not only does it teach us a lot of the aspects that is in a different terminology than the other three books, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, we see these four incidences throughout the book of John. It talks about fear. And it helps us relate ourselves to be equipped for the work ahead of us, to not be in fear of what the leaders or what the people or the cool crowd will think of us when it comes to Jesus Christ. We should not shut our door. We should continue to be bold. We know in the book of Acts, chapter 6, the disciples prayed for boldness, and boldness came upon them. Do not feel discouraged that you may not have boldness. Even the disciples had to pray for boldness. We need to pray for boldness on a daily. Before I street preach, I pray for boldness. I get those jitters before I street preach. You may not see it on camera, but off camera, I do get those jitters of what could happen. And then I have to lay everything to the side and trust that the Lord goes before me in a battle. So I think this was an interesting little quick word to give about do not fear. And I think it's mentioned so much about fear of what other people thought in the book of John. They shut the door or they were afraid to openly confess him because they'd be kicked out of the synagogues. But we shall not be ashamed of the gospel of Christ. We should continue to push it, and we should continue to plant seeds wherever we go. It's up to, of course, God if the seeds are going to be watered or if the seeds will be devoured amongst the wayside by fowls of the air. That's not up for us to do. We just plant the seed and we move along. So much love to you all. If you like videos like this, hit the like button and subscribe. Much love to you all, and may God bless you.